Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organizing the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pastor.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Good morning.
Well, we're out. Hello. Cody, what's up?
Nothing much. Just living my best life.
Yeah, aren't we all? Have you seen the movie Candyman?
All of them.
You've seen all the Candymen.
Yes.
How many Candyman movies are there?
So I want to say there might be 3 with the original, and then there was a rebooted, but it was still connected to the original.
So is Tony Todd in all of them? The actor that played the Candyman?
I believe he made an appearance in the Jordan Peele executive produced one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know Jordan Peele executive produced it. Was that one good?
It was. They updated the story and it made it work.
Okay, well, if you haven't seen Candyman, basically the premise goes like this. Tony Todd is the actor who played Daniel Robitaille. In this original movie, he's the ghost of a black man that was murdered in the 19th century Victoria era for falling in love with the daughter of a wealthy white man. Robitaille was the son of an enslaved man, and upon finding out about the relationship, a lynch mob sought him out, cut off his hand, and tortured him by smearing him with honey until bees stung him to death.
Yes.
And then he haunts the area, right? The housing projects, it says. Okay. So it's basically it's a haunting story. Anyways, there's lots of scenes in this movie with our friend actor Tony Todd and a bunch of bees. I guess we weren't there with CGI yet.
We weren't
there. So he's filming all these scenes with these bees, like they're coming out of his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And these are real bees.
Yes, evidently.
Okay. Every time, so Tony Todd said his lawyer, he had a good lawyer that did up his contracts. Every time Tony Todd was stung by a bee, filmmakers were forced to give him $1,000, according to a 2020 interview that he did with The Guardian. In total, Tony Todd earned an extra $27,000 for his troubles on top of his payment for the role. So he got stung 27 times. Did they have to verify it? Like, did he have to have a welt? Or did he just say, I got stung? That one stung me.
I bet he had to have some, like a stinger still in him, a welt.
I mean, that is bonkers. He, for what it's worth, was like, bring it on. Bring it on. And he said it only came to 27. It only came to 27. This
is why we don't have bees. It's because of this film made in 1992.
He's now 67 years old, and he was talking about this role, and he arranged the deal when he noticed how significant the bees were to his character, especially when it came to his character's gruesome death. Pretty gruesome.
Oh, it was.
I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen this movie all the way through.
It gets a little ridiculous in parts, but the story works.
According to Todd, there were close to 1 million bees on set. 1 million bees!
Again, bee shortage. And that's why Mark Wahlberg has his opening scene in The Happening about where's all the bees. They stung him.
Oh, man. Now, here's where it gets crazy. So Virginia Madsen is in this movie.
Yes, she is. Very essential character.
And she's allergic to bees. Like, very severely allergic to bees. So they get young bees and they tell her, well, young bees aren't as likely to sting. Why did she take that role? Are you kidding? Like, she could literally die.
Because she is getting paid.
Oh, I bet she wasn't making that. Like Virginia Madsen, she was a known actress, but she wasn't. It's not like she was Meg Ryan.
No. And in this film, she is doing. Is she doing an art project or is she doing an investigative piece? She's doing something, and yeah,
well, She needed to investigate a better contract.
She did,
I'm glad she's still among us.
thankfully.
This is wild. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm allergic to bees because I've never been stung.
Yeah.
I've killed like thousands of wasps, but I've never been stung by them either.
Yeah, I've been stung by a bee, and I'm not allergic. My grandma was allergic, but yeah, that's crazy. How do you even broach that? Yeah, this is like so. All films have insurance. All film, movie sets, productions, they have insurance. They have to. So how does that conversation go? Like, you say you're going to have bees, 1 million bees, live bees that could sting. All right, we'll insure you but it's going to cost you $11 billion. Like, how do you insure that?
So
Your main actress is allergic to bees? Is that what you said? How did that go? How did an insurance company even insure that?
I also wonder if there was some climate control.
It's probably the same insurance company that insured Alec Baldwin's Western.
Too soon, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that joke.
Yep. So I wonder if they had it cooler temperatures, that they also had like smoke in the air, that they had all these things that are supposed to slow bees down and make them more docile.
Yeah. I'm slower and more docile than I was, but it's not cold. I just weigh more. They should have just gave them good food to eat.
Maybe they gave them a lot of honey because
Do bees eat honey? I thought they made honey.
both. So if you spill honey out, like around your garden, it's a lot easier for them to process already processed honey, and they'll excrete it out into honey.
Well, I didn't know we were going to get into biology. That's very interesting.
And then they're more likely to pollinate your garden.
Very cool. Well, this is the United whatever's Wild Kingdom. Thanks for joining us on our wildlife podcast. Actually, no, this is Pop Culture Pastor.
So the only reason I know anything about bees is I had a youth that was a beekeeper.
You had a youth that was a beekeeper. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, you don't usually see that.
Nope. But he was working for a beekeeper when he was in high school, and then he started his own hives. And so now, because I am a pastor, I know a little bit about honey.
We live in a rural area. I will remind everyone listening.
Yep.
I had a youth who was a beekeeper. I have a youth who goes fishing every day. I asked him if he ever played video games, and he's like, no, never.
Why would you do that?
You watch any movies or any TV? No. I go fishing. Okay. So you would have no interest in my podcast. Probably not.
Unless you're talking about fishing.
Unless you're talking about fishing for lunkers. I don't even know what that means.
I don't either.
All right, it's the Pop Culture Pastor podcast. Thank you for turning us on. We got a brand new style of an episode for you, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this, and we'll explain it all to you before we get going. All right, welcome back to the Pop Culture Pastor. All right, we got a new style of episode. This will be one that reoccurs every once in a while.
We will get an EGOT out of this.
I don't know how we're getting an Academy Award. Fill out the Oscar. How are we going to fill out that part?
It will be made into a movie.
I mean, we could win a Grammy with a podcast, right? Isn't that something that could happen?
That could definitely happen.
Do the Grammys have podcast awards?
I'm naming it and claiming it now.
We're coming for you, Joseph Rogan. Yeah. Anyways, so this is a brand new thing we're doing. It's called Topics. And what it's going to be is we're going to have 3 different items that we talk about that have to do with pop culture. And at the end, we'll tell you the topic that runs through all of them.
The golden thread, as we say in the biz.
Yeah. And you can play it like a game. You can try and figure out what the topic is.
And if you figure it out before we reveal it, you get 5 points.
Okay. Score.
Yeah. I don't know what these points are good for.
Make sure you keep a track. Make sure you keep a track on the Facebook page. Just say, I got it. So I got 5 points. And we'll write that down.
Yes.
For something to be named later. Definitely not the quarterback of the New York Jets. Okay. The first item we're going to talk about, we didn't get a chance to talk about this on the Black Adam pod because we recorded after we saw the movie. So we recorded earlier in the week than we normally do. Well,
way early.
After that happened, this ginormous news broke.
The biggest news ever.
That pretty much guaranteed that The Rock wasn't changing the hierarchy, that James Gunn was. So after we recorded the pod last week, James Gunn and producer Peter Safran were named as leaders of DC Films, TV, and animation efforts. The head of DC Studios. Basically, they're the Kevin Feige of the DCU. No longer the DCEU. They changed that.
Thank God.
Well, I thought that would disappoint you because you're a Snyder fan.
I am a Snyder fan, but DCEU, it was too mouthy.
Well,
Too mouthy.
yeah. Anyways, so they are now in charge of the DCU, and they're the Feige. Like they're going to have control over the stories told. And how does this affect the future, Cody? How does this affect the future of DC? Is this good?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It is amazing that James Gunn, who people say, oh, Guardians, the most fun of the MCU.
Yeah. Okay.
And
some people would throw Ragnarok into that conversation.
Well, I mean, like just the franchise itself. So,
okay.
like, if you include the rest of the Thor movies,
yeah, I see.
But it's different directors also. Mm-hmm. But so Gunn did a great job in the MCU, and then has one of the better movies of the DCEU.
Well, that's not a very tough contest, though.
And then has, I would say, the best DC show that's on HBO Max.
Well, again,
because like if Sandman was on HBO Max, I would lean Sandman, but
the Sandman's like. But when you're talking about Sandman, it's the same as like when it was a comic book. Yes, it's made by DC Comics, but by and large, it's pretty separate from the DC universe.
It's not in the universe.
Yeah.
It is like the Batman. It's off on its own.
Yeah.
Although, like now, James and Pete can oversee that process as well. The side projects that aren't directly tied into the universe. I will say that I think that they got two unique styles between Pete and Jimmy. And I think it does leave the door open for Zack Snyder to direct and produce.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I know some people are saying that, and some people are referencing this video that Zack Snyder made where he said, I can't wait to work with Henry Cavill again. But understand, that's just something nice you say about people you worked with. That doesn't mean he's got something on tap. I know Scotty. Scotty told you that means he's definitely coming back.
No, I didn't talk to Scotty about it.
Okay. Scotty said it to me, I think.
So the reason I say that is because James Gunn made it into show business working on
They're friends.
Snyder movies.
Yeah, I got you.
He got into his directing.
Well, let's break this down. James Gunn is going to be the creative leader of it, right? So Saffron is going to be the business part.
Yeah.
And Gunn is going to be the creative element. So he is the Kevin Feige of the DCU. He has story control. And so just to answer the question, how does this affect the future? I assume now that these movies are going to be more, they're going to be together more. They're going to tell a story.
Yeah. And I think being part of the MCU will definitely give James some insight, because he did say he called Kevin Feige after he accepted the role.
Yeah. Although he did say, now, so in his acceptance, James Gunn said, we want to do exactly the same thing that the MCU did, but I want to maintain the individual directors to have their autonomy, creative autonomy over the movies. And I'm like, okay, James, but see Phase 4. I mean, a lot of people would say, yeah, this is the problem, is that Marvel did that. Gave these filmmakers a little bit more control. More like, okay, saying Phase 4 is probably not fair. See Thor: Love and Thunder, where Taika went he went the full Taika.
And I was here for it.
You never go the full Taika. You never go. But I think as a bottom line, I think James Gunn taking over, that's good. This is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. So
he's not as dark as Snyder, where they both they both have a style that utilizes music and kind of helps set the mood. James Gunn's fun and quirky, where Snyder, it's deathly serious.
Well, and Cavill's out there doing interviews, and boy, he's just laying it on thick. He's like, I want a hopeful Superman. I want it to be hopeful and joyful. And he's saying it in almost every interview. He's making it pretty clear what movie he thinks he's signed on for. A Superman movie that's more, Christopher Reeve, those Superman movies than, Zack Snyder's Superman. So he's kind of putting it out there what he wants. And yeah, we'll see. He's also said recently that him and James Gunn need to have long talks.
Have those talks, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Have those talks.
I'm with Henry on this. Yes. Make an upbeat Superman, because the character is upbeat. He's impossibly upbeat. That's the whole point of Superman. That's why he's a Boy Scout, because he believes the best in everybody. He's not cynical.
Yeah, that's why we have Batman.
Well, that's why it's interesting when Superman and Batman get together. If they're both broody and gloomy, then it's no fun. Okay, if you're James Gunn, what are you focusing on? What are you building around? So if the MCU built around Iron Man and Captain America, I think it's fair to say Captain America and Iron Man were the linchpins.
Okay.
If you're James Gunn, where do you go from here? Because I'm assuming that you're not throwing away Black Adam. You've got a Flash movie coming that is going to come out. And I'm assuming they're not going to just restart after these movies they're already working on come out. They're just going to build from here. So if you're James Gunn, what do you do?
My linchpin for this would be Shazam. I am building off of Shazam like an Iron Man. And my captain will be Superman. We're riding with the hope. And then you have Batfleck back potentially, and he could be brooding old Bruce, which I'm here for, because that story really hasn't been told, in which in the comics it is. You get aged Batman and where he goes as he progresses as he gets older, he's less trusting at times. And
do you think we're going to get Affleck Batman anymore, though? Beyond the cameos? I think whatever they do at the end of The Flash has to reset. It's like a soft reset, right?
Yeah, and I think that they would have had to do a reset of The Flash within The Flash. Like
Yeah, because Ezra's not coming back.
You end it with Ezra gone. That he made a sacrifice, or that timeline's dead forever.
They've already said that Ezra's not coming back. They're done with Ezra, which is it's sad because, you know, we feel bad for Ezra. He's clearly got some issues he's working through. But at the same time, boy, like whatever they do at the end of the Flash movie has to be something pretty drastic now.
In which, with Flash, and if you're doing a Flashpoint movie, anything's possible.
I definitely think Superman has to be built around. Like, you just made a big deal about Cavill. Cavill's got to be your guy, right?
So
I'm okay with the way you set it up, where Shazam is sort of the linchpin and Superman's your captain. But I think in star quality, it's reversed. Cavill's your Robert Downey Jr., and then Zach is your Chris Evans.
In which, I mean, when I say Shazam, I mean the Shazam universe, because Black Adam's a part of it. And
right.
Dwayne is star power. And Zach, I mean, he's a known quantity. He's just not as big as a Robert Downey Jr.
Well, and the weird thing around all this has been that there's some weird tension between The Rock and James Gunn, because The Rock has not acknowledged the James Gunn hiring in any way. He's been on radio silence. So I think The Rock's mad that he's not in charge. Am I wrong in reading it that way?
I don't know, because I thought I saw something from The Rock about James.
Did he say, well, he might have did he finally acknowledge it? There was a good 48 hours where he didn't even acknowledge it. And I kind of wondered, The Rock was sad.
I mean, he's been really focused on his XFL, because that made a big push.
Right. Yeah. He was really focused on the XFL. Stop it.
No, like they had a special on ESPN that took up like significant time. Like, I'm not joking when I say that he's been doing promotional work, like more so about the XFL than he has been Black Adam, which is still in theaters and was still the #1 movie.
No, what a waste of time. Nobody wants to watch the XFL.
Well,
right? I heard a rumor that The Rock was buying WWE. Did you hear that?
Oh, that wouldn't shock me either.
I think that's a really smart move. And then he could be like the Vince McMahon. He could be the bad guy that shows up every once in a while. Do you like that idea or no?
I'm good with that idea.
Is the WWE done? Are they just done?
No, I think since Triple H has been in charge of creating the creative control piece and they kicked Vince out, that WWE has actually rebounded. But he's brought back a lot of the talent they had cut, and he's starting to promote the younger people that they weren't promoting. He's trying to get rid of all the old guard that really should just be side pieces at this point. Yeah. So
let me read you what DC has coming up here, so we can just see exactly what is on the ledger here for DC. Pennyworth, the origin of Batman's butler.
That's a rebranding or renaming of
season 3, not a part of the universe, right?
No.
Titans season 4, not a part of the universe, or am I wrong about that?
It's a different Batman in Titans.
So it's similar to the Arrowverse type stuff. It's separated. Doom Patrol season 4.
That connects with Titans.
Yeah. The Arrowverse stuff. The Flash season 9. Then you have March of next year, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. The Flash movie is set to come out in June. The Blue Beetle. What do you think about the Blue Beetle?
I know a lot of people really like that character, and I'm like, eh.
So the dude from Cobra Kai is playing that character. And what I found interesting about that was then during that tumultuous time when Zaslav took over at WB and started axing stuff, Like, remember, he got rid of Batgirl or whatever that movie was. He got rid of all these things. And they asked about Blue Beetle because it seemed like it was the last one left standing. He was like, nope, Blue Beetle goes on. So they must feel pretty good about Blue Beetle.
Well,
Which is weird because he's kind of obscure.
yeah, it works.
All right. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That's next Christmas. A year from this Christmas. Peacemaker season 2, likely sometime next year. Joker 2, 2024. The Batman 2 just started in development. Wonder Woman 3 in development. Man of Steel 2. I mean, these are things that are now farther on the horizon. Yeah, several offshoots from the Matt Reeves Batman Penguin TV series, which just so they've got they're doing a Penguin series. They just hired Christian Milioti, from How I Met Your Mother. She's going to play the daughter of the Penguin.
I am here for all things Penguin related.
Yeah, well, he was so amazing in that movie.
So yeah, Colin Farrell, great job. But the character of the Penguin is a cool character. I liked the Penguin. He was my favorite villain of Batman that wasn't a main villain, because he usually is teaming up with someone.
Yeah, so
him and Mr. J are besties at
the
times.
gritty, more real Batman stuff that kind of Nolan kind of started. Boy, it really suits Penguin the best. Out of all the rogues gallery for Batman, it serves Penguin the best because in the comics, he's like this cartoonish, short, round guy. Whereas, in fact, I think Matt Reeves' version of the Penguin was maybe the best one I've seen, where he's kind of this unhinged lackey of a mobster currently, which you assume eventually he's going to be the guy.
He's taken over.
But I kind of dug that version. So yeah, I think I'm here for a Penguin TV series as well.
Yeah.
All right. So James Gunn, there's a lot of things in development. So here's my next question. He can't really change much. They were already heading in a direction. Or do you think he can? Do you think there's more cancellations to come? Do you think there's stuff will get changed of what we're looking at for the future of the DC?
I think that the overall storyline can change in tone, and some side stories can definitely change. And if you're building towards, Darkseid is your Thanos level event. If you're building towards him, because Snyder Cut doesn't exist in this universe, you can definitely adapt some stories and change them and get to a place where it makes more sense how and why the Justice League is actually working. Because right now the Justice League,
yeah. Well, see, and that's going to be the problem is. So once you get this rolling again, I don't even know if you can go back to Justice League.
Justice Society of America.
Well, and the problem really is that Batman is separated because for all accounts, Ben Affleck is not coming back for main stuff. He's doing some cameos in the Flash movie. I think that was known, but really only to tidy up some loose ends. Like everything else has kind of indicated that he's not going to be back. So you have the Matt Reeves Batman, and they've pretty much said that that's separated.
It is separate.
So I don't really know how they work their way back to a Batman in the Justice League. The Flash character is a mess because of the trouble of Ezra.
Unless within the Flash, we get into a different timeline and all the characters look the same except Batman.
Yeah. And there's been actors' names bandied about for a new Flash. Apparently, they're not going to consider Grant Gustin, which I get it. I understand why.
Yeah.
But there's a certain, population of fans out there who would love to see that happen. But it just wouldn't work on the big screen, I guess.
Yeah.
We should get, do you think we could get Grant Gustin on the show?
Have his people contact our people.
Let's just get him. We'll just ask him all the serious, hard questions like, hey, would you like to be the Flash on the big screen? Do you think they will call you?
What is the best part of the Flash?
Would you like to campaign on our show?
Yes.
That'd be interesting.
Yes and yes and yes.
All right. We'll tweet at him.
It's happening.
We'll tweet at him, and he'll ignore us like Zach Guilford. Although Zach didn't ignore us.
I still haven't recovered.
Don't talk about it. We're still sad. Okay. Next topic or next item.
Yes.
We'll give you the topic later. She-Hulk. Did it suck? That's the question. Did it suck? So we did our mid-season review of She-Hulk. We like to do mid-season reviews.
Yeah.
But in this case, it kind of was a bad time to review She-Hulk because right after we reviewed it, I felt like they had 2 lackluster episodes in a row after we reviewed it. Because up to that point, I think if I'm recalling this right, we both kind of liked it. It was like, it's different. It's fresh. I like it. It's funny.
Wongers.
It's funny. Yeah, Wongers. Even though I had some issues with if you're going to use characters that are already established, and be funny with them, you don't want to make them idiots.
Wongers.
That's
and all I can say.
Now I will always call him Wongers and think of Madison with 2 N's and with a Y, but not where you think. Okay. So after we reviewed She-Hulk, she twerked with Megan Thee Stallion. Mm-hmm. Daredevil did a walk of shame.
Yeah.
Then the finale, which, boy, it was such a big fourth wall break. Let's just talk about that for a second. Did you like the finale?
I actually really enjoyed it.
I mean, it was fun, but it also felt like a slap in the face because it just made everything that happened irrelevant. Which, let's say, okay, if you're emulating Deadpool, who breaks the fourth wall, the stakes are still there. There's still stakes. And even though it's funny and ridiculous and kind of absurd, there's still stakes. And everyone around Deadpool is still in the serious world. Did you ever notice that? So, in the movies, he's got Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Yeah.
They're both serious like they would be in any other Marvel movie. It's Deadpool who's just acting ridiculous. Mm-hmm. The problem I have with She-Hulk is it was all just a big joke. At the end, especially, just a big joke.
I actually enjoyed that because there are people that take the comic book world way too seriously.
It's true. Even though I thought it was ridiculous, I also would be lying if I didn't say I kind of enjoyed that it was just a comedic kind of fluff.
And
I enjoyed it.
I loved that when she goes to the boss, Kevin, it's a robot.
Yeah. You think you're going to see Feige, but then it's a robot, Kevin.
Yep.
And yeah, there's lots of hilarity and ridiculousness all wrapped up into that scene.
And where the story led up to the point where she breaks the fourth wall and then goes to Marvel Studios, I'm like, this story can't continue. It's dead.
Yeah,
it's dead.
It was literally dead. The whole finale, the whole climax to the story they were telling was rendered obsolete.
Very.
That didn't feel like a slap in the face to you, having watched all the episodes?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm torn. This is where I'm at. I'm torn. In answer to the question, did She-Hulk suck? I'm like, yeah, it did. But also it didn't.
I am with it being good. It's like watching a Mel Brooks movie.
Okay. There's a problem with that. And it has something to do with what we've already talked about, what we're talking about now, and the next category. Okay. You ready for the next topic, the next item?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's talk about Rings of Power.
I enjoy Rings of Power.
All right, let's just talk about Rings of Power. I enjoyed Rings of Power. What was your expectation going into Rings of Power?
So I'm like, how much more is there to Tolkien's story before The Hobbit. Like,
Apparently 3,000 years worth.
and so I'm like, well, I am intrigued to see what the elves are doing during this time and how Middle Earth becomes a bunch of jabronis. And it did not disappoint.
Jabronis is a technical term from Tolkien himself, by the
Yes.
way. Copyrighted and coined by the Tolkien estate. And then stolen by The Rock.
Dwayne.
But seriously, okay, so this is famous because they spent $1 billion on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big, expensive production. And what's the first thing that jumps out to me is there are no recognizable actors. It's all unknowns
Oh, yeah.
for the most part. All of these actors, and it's like, well, I guess they saved money. Like, this is where they saved the money. Cause I guess, I mean, let's just talk about the way it looks from the first episode. Man, I was in. This looked like Middle Earth. I felt like I was back in Middle Earth.
It looked like Middle Earth. Even the opening credit sequence where it's like pieces of sand blowing into these shapes and like it's intricate. And I'm like, this is basic, but yet it's like very artistic. What is going on here? How much money did we spend on the opening credits?
Yeah, this should have just been black font on white screen, flashing what the needed credits, and then go right in the middle. Why are you spending money on the credits, bro? Why? Bezos. Let's go. Let's get Bezos on the phone. Now I have to say that my level of familiarity with like things like the Silmarillion, the notes that Tolkien wrote that were according, to the back history of Middle Earth, the rise of Sauron, things like that, are low. I didn't read the Silmarillion. I didn't care to read the Silmarillion because it wasn't written by Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Mm-hmm. It was a collection of notes that his son gathered together posthumously after J.R.R. died. And he finished the story, put it together as a book and finished the story. Now, and then, that. But all of that's irrelevant because the family, the Tolkien estate, only gives permission to the television project this and the movies that Peter Jackson did, only gives them permission to use The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So all of the historical things they can use are just in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Because, yes, there's an appendix. There's basically more notes.
Like, there's people that have spent not hours, not even days or weeks, years of their lives, scouring through this, comparing it with the actual story, the narrative, and then being like, okay, this is where they reference this and this fits in like this, and everyone knows this. We
are inching closer to our topic because while I found this show delightful, and actually one of the, as far as TV wise, and this includes all the Disney Plus Marvel shows, Star Wars, I found that I was more engaged and deep into this waiting for the next episode than I've been for a show in a long time. I loved this show. I thought the acting was great. I mean, the guy that plays Arendir, the elf, Ishmael Cruz Cordova, he was amazing. He's just fantastic. I thought he was great. Charlie Vickers, who plays Hallbrand, was wonderful. Just really good across the board. I thought Galadriel, I don't know how to say her name, Morfydd. I don't know. She's great too. I love them all. But again, there seems to be a split, right? I just thought this would be a hit. This seems like this has to be a hit, right? It's an amazing show. It's a great show, but there are lots of people upset because they say they've changed things in the history according to the Silmarillion. Now, here's the problem, Cody. The problem is by virtue of the Tolkien estate and what they gave to use, they can't use the Silmarillion. The Tolkien estate is saying, listen, this is what's canon. The books that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote himself and put down in story form are canon. They're saying the Silmarillion is not canon by virtue of their actions. Okay? But for many people out there, they were like, I've seen the comments. I've looked at comment boards on this. And it's like, well, they changed this from the Silmarillion. It's like, I keep saying this. They couldn't use the Silmarillion. To them, that's a non-issue. So this is a story off of what the Tolkien estate themselves says is canon.
And I mean, this is something that, especially within geekdom, it's a big deal.
It's becoming a bigger deal. And it leads us into what is the topic of all three of these items. Okay. And that is the topic of world building. And listen, I'm going to tell you whose fault this is. This is my generation's fault. This is Generation X. So we're the ones writing the stories now. And the problem is when we were growing up, we had all these wonderful one-shot stories. E.T., The Goonies. What else? I mean, there has to be more. What other one-shot movies are out there? The 80s was full of them.
Yeah.
Willow, but now they're bringing Willow back.
I was trying to think, did Red Dawn have a sequel?
No, Red Dawn did not have a sequel. Flight of the Navigator was a great movie that I loved when I was a kid. Our generation had all of these great one-shot movies, and it was like we wanted more. And so now we've created these universes like the MCU. Star Wars, listen, Star Wars is off the rails. Star Wars fandom is completely split. It went off the rails with the prequels. That's when it started. And the whole problem is Lucas didn't go a direction he thought that a lot of the fans thought he should have. Like that was the beginning of that. And then, the cartoons came out, and I think some people liked the cartoons. Lots of people didn't watch them. I never watched them.
Yeah.
Then the sequels come out, and you got all sorts of issues with how Luke is portrayed. And all of a sudden, because me and you are both on record as saying, I thought The Force Awakens was good. I thought Last Jedi was very good.
It was better.
And then I thought The Rise of Skywalker was a bummer.
It was a dumpster fire.
Okay, but let's talk about why. Okay, so this is where we're getting to, this world building. Nothing can be just a movie anymore. So when they're in the planning stage for a movie nowadays in Hollywood, it's never just like, hey, let's make a really good story. Let's tell a good story. It's not about storytelling anymore. It's what can we world build with? We lost the art of telling good stories. Now, instead of telling stories, they're throwing subpar stories at me where they're world building. Hey, everyone should want to be interested in the world of the Maze Runner. Well, I'm not. I'm sorry. You told the story so poorly. I don't care. Because the Hunger Games was a big part of this too.
Oh, yeah. The Hunger Games, they didn't tell the main chunk of the book, which was actually surviving the games in the relationships that she has. Literally, Rue dies instantly, and you're like, okay, because she's a big part of her death is what is a catalyst for a big part of the second book, jumping off the issues and drama with it. So it doesn't make sense why she has such a strong connection or emphasis in the second movie, because she was with Rue for half a second. Jurassic World, Dominion. Holy cow, that was a dumpster fire. They're all about just having something that can be franchised and have multiple things go off.
Let's talk about Jurassic Park for a second.
Love the first one.
The
All-time
first
classic.
one, the Spielberg Jurassic Park, is a quintessential 80s style movie. It's a one-shot story that works. Oh man, is it engaging. So great. But it was it's right at the beginning of that borderline where we're like, okay, we got a world build with this. The problem is it doesn't work. It doesn't work as a world building story. It works as a one shot. And we don't want to tell one shot stories anymore. They're trying to do, this is what they're trying to do with movies because of the Marvel. Marvel may have ruined this.
It's the law of unintended
Yeah.
consequences.
I mean, Marvel may be the culprit in this with all the money they've made through this, but they're doing in movies what previously had been reserved for television. Like, okay, so let's talk about Lost for a second. Lost is amazing. Maybe the most popular TV show in my lifetime, Lost. People talked about that, like the internet. It's the first like raging big thing that I remember on the internet as far as entertainment went.
Yeah.
People were talking about it on message boards and they were just debating theories and it was just a big deal. But that's where you get world building on television because there's episode after episode after episode. There's 20 episodes a season of Lost.
That's ridiculous.
Maybe, but that's where you can do that. The problem is now it seems like that's what they're trying to do with movies. And what I want to ask Cody is, are we done telling one-shot stories where it's just a story? Are we done with that? Because, man, there's a lot of classics out there that were just one story.
So Top Gun was originally just one story, and then they made Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, and
Although
what's that going to do?
I did enjoy it, but like you would then, if you continue with the story, you have to move off Maverick, and then he can occasionally make a cameo. Like I remember being like you.
He shows up like Val Kilmer did.
Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. So there's a little offshoot there. I think Top Gun Maverick is part of an offshoot that started with Cobra Kai.
The 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, Cobra Kai kind of blazes this new trail. Because you remember Cobra Kai starts off on YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off on YouTube and then Netflix picks it up. But Cobra Kai was like this thing. It's like, let's take an 80s intellectual property. Let's take some 80s IP and really just have some kind of fun with it. Let's just kind of go nuts with it. And whereas the Karate Kids always took themselves seriously, the movies, this is going to be a little bit more tongue in cheek. It's going to be funny. But then we're going to have some stakes too.
Yeah.
But we're going to just do it a different way. It's going to wink at the audience. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I see Top Gun Maverick as kind of winking at the audience. They're like, yes, we're playing this for seriousness, but we're also winking it up at you. Like, hey, remember this? Wink, wink. You remember
the
this?
whole opening sequence.
Yeah. I mean, like everything's the same in the first, 5 minutes of the movie as the original. And like everybody watching the movie understands that this doesn't dwell in any sort of reality in the present day.
No.
Like good guys, bad guys, Russians. Oh, wait a minute.
Unnamed country.
You know what I mean? Like it's sort of winking at the audience. And that's why I think people enjoyed it. And so that's just a little offshoot. But are we done with one-shot stuff? Because now I imagine these Hollywood people get in a room and they're talking about down the line. It's never about like, let's tell a good story. Because everything's got to start something. Like, look, Harry Potter did this. Once Harry Potter ran out of the material, I think it's fair to say it's not good.
Yeah.
I don't think people are enamored with Fantastic Beasts.
First one wasn't bad, but it got progressively worse and it dropped off drastically.
For a franchise like Harry Potter, not bad is not good.
Like the acting made up for the lack of story. That's how I'll word it. That they had good actors in place. And you can get by with that for a little bit, but like if you don't have a story and it's clear that there was meant to be sequels, then it just flounders.
So it's not written by Rowling, J.K. Rowling. And here's where we get into another issue. This is where we get into another issue with the world building. Once you have a canon. So Marvel runs into this too. Like, did She-Hulk suck? We don't know. Some people say yes, some people say no. The people that say yes largely are people like what I've said, which is the same reason Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness didn't quite work for me. On its own, as a singular story, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness works. It's a good story. Remember I said this on our review. Mm-hmm. My problem with it was I expected it to connect to the rest of the MCU and continue the world building. Now, I'm not saying it's their fault. This could be my problem. But clearly this is a problem shared by many people.
So one thing that I guess Peacemaker did that I feel Marvel really hasn't done with their shows is there was a clear tie-in. Because throughout, Peacemaker's making fun of all the Justice League people. Keeps making fun of them. And then at the end, there's something that could be a world-ending event that Peacemaker and his ragtag team disarm. And who shows up late? But Jason Momoa and other people of the Justice League.
Spoilers.
Ezra. And if you haven't watched Peacemaker
Spoilers.
after I have talked about it nonstop for like 6 months, and Ben Affleck, and you get Soup's cape.
Yeah, you get shadowy Superman.
You don't get
We don't have
Cavill.
the rights to Henry Cavill back yet.
But like you get those people, and he tells them off like, you guys are late, which kind of fits in with where we're at in Black Adam, by the way. But I mean, there's actually like some connectivity to it where like I thought WandaVision connected. Other people did not think that it connected to Multiverse of Madness.
It connected. It just seemed disjointed between them.
And I would also say stylistically, they're two different directors or producers, whatever, because WandaVision, you are getting like sitcoms through the ages of storytelling lenses, and then you get Sam Raimi in Multiverse. And so Sam Raimi is going to look different, it's going to feel different, and I think that they assumed that the audience would know what Wanda was going through, would get where she's at, that, okay, all these things are happening, and you can assume.
Okay, it shouldn't be a problem, though, because that's how comic books were. Each comic book was written, each title was written by a, usually a different writer, different drawer, just different artist who had different styles. And then sometimes those characters would show up in another book and have to be drawn by a different artist, and they would have a different kind of flair to them. So in comic books, when I was growing up and reading them, the individual characters had their own arcs in their comic book. They were dealing with their villains and their stuff. And every once in a while, there was a team up. Now, here's the problem, Cody. This is what I'm trying to say with the world building. Now we want, if we're not getting the team up now, we want the direction that we're heading towards it in every movie. And I don't think it's really fair.
Oh, no, it's not.
But I think this is what the MCU has caused is now we can't watch a movie like, look, I didn't like Thor Love and Thunder. Now I had artistic problems with it, but I didn't like the story either because again, it felt like it was disconnected. But then I have to examine myself and say, does everything have to world build? But it feels like in today's day and age, it does.
I mean, I know I bash Iron Man 1, 2, and 3. But if you watch Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, you really don't get a lot of idea that everyone and their mom's going to show up from the Avengers. Like, you just establish Iron Man. That's it.
Yeah. But that was a long time ago. And I feel like the culture's changed.
Well,
Let's talk
with
about
the Infinity Saga. That's where I think we get into like, okay, we have this level of expectation, and we're constantly now adding new pieces and team ups and crossovers, and it's all coming together, and you can see that big story.
Okay, what I'm leading to is this, and if you haven't figured out the topic of the show, the thing that binds the three items we were talking about together is this idea of world building. This world building, is it good for the stuff? And it kind of joins too with this other idea that this is all existing IP, right? So now we do this thing where it has to be existing IP. It's all over the place now. Even, what's the show about that your wife likes, the political one, the one with the women fighting back.
Oh,
the really progressive one.
The
Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. That's existing IP that they have completely extended past, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like everything has to be existing IP. Right now, as we speak, Netflix has this Enola Holmes, which is extended from the IP of Sherlock Holmes. It seems like everything we want now is this extension, but this presents a problem, as we referenced with Star Wars. And now let's go back to Rings of Power. People are so divided on Rings of Power. The people that didn't like it are the people that feel like they have gone away from canon. But even explaining it to them, that doesn't seem to help. Well, the Silmarillion, it's like they didn't get to use the Silmarillion. The Tolkien estate has spoken, and what they have said is it's clearly not canon.
So this is where my biblical studies come into play. This is a lot of early church council stuff, like the Council of Hippo and the Council of Nicaea and all that. They battled and fought for what books would be included in the canon of not only the Old Testament, but the New Testament. And because at this time in the late 300s into early 400s, and they'll fight over it again later on down the road, that literally they had to come up with criteria, because there's hundreds of books. Some were clearly written just by your regular Joe 50 years ago, making up an elaborate story. And then some were like, okay, this is from the right time period, but does this person have the credibility? So like for their guidelines, it became, they had to be a person that was connected to Jesus. They had to have some apostleship, discipleship. They had to have something. It had to be like either a letter to the church or a recounting of Jesus' life story. And there's other criteria that were made or set out that fit it. So then once they had the criteria, then they could start picking through the books, because they just weren't written. Then God said, let there be a Bible. That's not how it worked. So we have the 66 books within the Protestant church that we have because of these councils. And literally, once it was said, we can't use the infancy book of Thomas, can't use that infancy gospel. So that's not biblical. We can't use whatever random book you want to put in there.
Well, all of like the Apocrypha.
Yeah. So you can't just start picking and choosing from outside. You have to use what is there for your faith foundation. Yeah. And so knowing what is and what isn't allowed is important for fandom.
And we have fought about it ever since.
The church has, and now the geek culture has caught up.
Now, here's my concern. Endgame. Infinity War and Endgame. Was that lightning in a bottle? I don't think that'll ever happen again. Because we all want different things. Now you've got like the IP people, the canon people, who won't be happy. Because basically, look, all the story, when you're starting off with IP and you're extending it, basically what we're getting now is all fan fiction, right?
Yeah.
And some fan fiction can be surprisingly good. Most of it's junk. Mm-hmm. So if all we're getting is fan fiction now, it's all an extension of existing IP. You're going to have the canon people who are going to be upset. There's always going to be the bigoted goobers who don't like, any women or minority superheroes. Like, that's always going to be a problem. They're not going to like that. There's going to be the people who are used to the world building. Maybe like me. Maybe I fall into this category where I'm disappointed if it doesn't build the world out a little more. I just want a little more, right? I want it to be connected.
Yeah, because the thing that I loved about the Batman, it wasn't connected to the DCEU. It was a whole separate story.
Yeah, see, but I loved the Batman too, and it's exactly because I'm not as invested in that world.
And so I'm like, get Batman off on his own. The thing with Spider-Man, like, it's great that he's being a part of the Avengers and doing all that stuff, but I want a local street level Spider-Man. I don't need Spidey saving the whole world. Save Brooklyn once in a while. My goodness.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, listen, No Way Home is fantastic. I think Spider-Man No Way Home might be one of the best Marvel movies ever made. Like, I watched it again the other night. I was like, man, this movie is really, really good. Mm-hmm. Really good. And it's like the epitome of fan fiction, right?
Yeah.
So much so that they're actually using old movies, working it into the story.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy that they wrote a story that was engaging, that was emotionally reactive and engaging. And
corrected the Garfield villains.
Oh, man. I mean, that movie's outstanding. But it is. If I'm looking at it with a cold, hard eye, I'm saying, okay, that's just fan fiction. There's nothing canon about that until the end. And then you get like, it seems like that was made it even more brilliant is they somehow found a way to work it back to comic book Spider-Man, where moving forward, he gets to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then we're back into like, well, then they're fan servicing for us by going back to more of the canon. And I'm just wondering, but is this good? Is this good? Is it good for us that this is where entertainment's at? It's good for geeks because we get to sit here and talk about it.
So I think everything, it's a pendulum that it ebbs and flows, and that will overcorrect towards the opposite end of the spectrum at some point. Yeah. It's coming. Right now, I think where we're at, I don't think you're going to have necessarily that unified, everyone loves this story anymore, because I think that there's expectations, and the expectations, like you said, it's broken down within various groups, and I know I'm going back to the Bible a lot on this, but even in Jesus' life, there's various groups, Jewish sects that are out there. There's the Pharisees, there's the Sadducees, there's the Essenes, and there's the Zealots. And all of them had different expectations of what the Savior would look like, or if there would even be a Savior. Mm. And quite often, all the groups missed. And so we as fans, we have these pockets of people that like this and like that. And are we missing the goodness that is in front of us? Because right now, if you told me that the level of acting and the level of directors that are available within these superhero franchises, or even the Tolkien stuff, like if you would have told that to me as a kid, I would have been like, no.
Yeah, all we had for Tolkien when I was a kid was the cartoon of The Hobbit. Yeah. And look, I loved it, but it's nothing compared to Peter Jackson's movies.
No. And so when Peter Jackson made The Hobbit, you had fans getting upset, and including,
I was one of them.
Vigo was upset because he's like, there's too much CGI. You need real acting in this and real storytelling.
Vigo from Ghostbusters 2?
No.
Vigo. Viggo Mortensen.
Yes, that Vigo.
I would like. Look, I was disappointed in the Hobbit movies because, for one, The Hobbit is like it's kind of a quicker read compared to The Lord of the Rings.
It is.
And to stretch that out into 3 movies, I was just kind of appalled. I was just like, oh, no, I hate this.
This is what we call a cash grab.
Yeah, if that's what it felt like. It's like, you don't need to drag this story out for 3 movies.
So I think that's the downside of the world building is there's a lot of cash grab movies that, we don't need to stretch the story out that long. Now, if you're giving me something new and something that's actually insightful, yes, you keep world building. But if you're giving me Jurassic World Dominion, you keep that movie and you burn it. Just burn it.
Speaking of cash grabs and world building and IP, intellectual property, next week we're doing another Be Kind Rewind. And the movie is Creed. The movie is Creed. We're touching the Rocky universe.
This is my intellectual property fandom where I get upset fast.
We are going to fight so much next week.
So do you want me to talk about why I have not watched Creed yet?
Not yet. Save it for next week.
So fans just know I have not watched Creed yet. So he'll be fresh.
I
will have the freshest eyes out of any eyes that have ever seen it.
We appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the pod. What do you guys think? What do you think about world building and intellectual property and where storytelling is as a whole?
Canon, those sorts of things.
Can we be unanimously happy, pleased about a story again? Or are we just going to be divided?
Like even Whovians are divided about canon and world building.
Well, when you've been going on as long as Doctor Who has, like, it seems just impossible that they're not going to be divided.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like the longer these things go on, the harder it's going to be to please everybody. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the point of all this. So what do you guys think? What do you think about canon and intellectual property? What do you think about the 3 things we talk about? James Gunn, the Feige of the DCU. Did She-Hulk suck? What do you think? Tell us. Rings of Power. What did you think about Rings of Power? Let us know on our social media posts. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Join our Facebook group to join the community. So you'll get all of our posts more often in your newsfeed, and you can talk to us
about the TV show Community.
No, that's I mean, I'm not saying we'll never talk about it.
Because I'm here for any discussion about Community, unless it's negative slander, and then you get off my lawn.
Definitely. I'm currently in the middle of my 3rd rewatch of Community.
Oh, I think I've rewatched it 5 times.
Yeah. Dave and Cody on the podcast. All right, let's get out of here. Creed next week. Be Kind Rewind. We'll see you then.